Alexa, stop. Oh, my voice. I don't feel like recording today, so I have a faster solution. Okay, quick tip is very easy. You go to your file. I send you a lot of PDF files. You select the PDF file. You right click. Everybody has Microsoft Edge. You select open with the PDF
Citizens
file,
to wonder
Microsoft
if there will be a
Edge,
similar amount of
and
increase
then
in violence
you
and
go
crime.
to read out
One
loud
other
at the
cities
top.
are grappling
Okay,
with similar issues
you could also
and reducing
slow it
law
down,
enforcement and firefighter numbers due to budget
and you could practice
constraints.
repeating slowly
To
as
the
well.
possible public safety implications, make clear that layoffs can have
I'm gonna click open with. Everybody has Microsoft Edge on their Windows computer, and simply I'm gonna click here. But
sector firms, such as reduced ability to provide products and services efficiently and safely. On paper, layoffs might reduce costs, but the reality is that a
I'm
layoff can have
also then
unintended
gonna click here.
negative financial consequences. Whether a layoff
Okay, I
improves the
think she's
firm's
fine.
productivity and financial health is largely up to the remaining employees. 3. Do the firm's remaining employees understand the economic
And here I
reason
can
for the
change
layoff?
speed.
Are the remaining employees motivating the remaining workers? A layoff can deflate workers and fan concerns over job security. Current economic slowdown has resulted in a greater focus on the financial well-being of organizations. One way to maintain the organization's fiscal health in the face of difficult economic conditions is to cut costs. Of course, in most organizations, an appreciable cost of doing business is the cost of labor. Labor costs can be reduced a number of ways, such as through reduced work hours and wage freezes. In the extreme, the cost of labor can be eliminated through layoffs. Layoffs can be used as a means to improve a firm's financial performance. Downsizing is meant to improve productive ITY and financial performance through reduced labor costs due to reduced employment levels. However, as the following issues illustrate, there can be difficulties in using layoffs as a means to improve organizational performance. Consider the following points. In an effort to balance the city's budget, Newark, New Jersey, laid off 167 of its police officers. The 15% reduction in the size of the police force has caused anxious challenges. After reading this chapter, you should be able to deal more effectively with the following challenges. 1. Identify the costs and benefits associated with employee separations. 2. Understand the differences between voluntary and involuntary separations. 3. Avoid problems in the design of early retirement policies. 4. Design HRM policies for downsizing the organization that are alternatives to a layoff. And, when all else fails, develop a layoff program that is effective and fair to the firm's stakeholders. 5. Understand the significance and value of outplacement programs. Chapter 6. Managing employee separations, downsizing, and outplacement. Source: Lisa F. Young/Shutterstock. 199. 200 Part 3 Staffing. The effects of layoffs are still being researched, but it appears that layoffs do not necessarily lead to positive economic outcomes. On the negative side, layoff announcements can trigger reduced stock prices for publicly traded firms. For layoffs have also been found to lead to decreases in firm profits, particularly for those companies that compete based on research and innovation. 5. Overall, layoffs, as with any kind of employee separation, can have negative or positive consequences. An important factor is how well the employee separation process is managed. The managerial perspective. Global competition and technological advances have changed the rules of competition, forcing many firms to become increasingly productive with smaller workforces. In Adityan, voluntary turnover does not appear to be declining, and it is difficult to find qualified replacements. 6 managers must not only develop skills to help an employee who leaves the company voluntarily, but they must also aid employees who have been fired for cause or are being let go for economic reasons. A badly managed ending to the employment relationship can damage a firm's reputation in its industry or community and limit its ability to attract the scarce, talented employees that it may need in the future. This chapter deals with the sometimes more unpleasant task of managing an organization's outflow of human resources. We explore the process leading up to an employee's exit from the firm and how to manage that process effectively. What are employee separations? An employee separation occurs when an employee ceases to be a member of an organization. 7. The turnover rate is a measure of the rate at which employees leave the firm. Well-managed companies try to monitor their turnover rate and identify and manage causes for turnover. The goal is to minimize turnover and the costs of replacing employees. Replacement costs, particularly for highly skilled positions, can be surprisingly high. For example, replacing a U.S. Navy fighter pilot may cost more than $1 million. 8. However, multiple turnover rates can be calculated, and it is important to focus on the correct numbers. Exhibit 6.1 presents the basics about calculating turnover rates. An excessively high turnover rate, compared to the industry standard, is often a symptom of problems within the organization. Employee separations can and should be managed. Before we discuss the management of separations, however, we examine both the costs and the benefits of separations. The costs of employee separations. The cost of turnover can differ across organizations, and some costs associated with turnover can be difficult to estimate. For example, an organization's geographic location may necessitate a particularly high cost of recruiting new employees, which causes the cost of turnover in that organization to be unusually high. The effect of lost talent on sales, on productivity, or on research and development all may be tremendous, but difficult to estimate. Employee turnover affects the bottom line. A recent survey of over 200 insurance brokerages demonstrates the relationship between employee turnover and firm profitability. 9. The broker ages were arbitrarily divided into 2 groups: those with profitability that exceeded 20% of sales and those with profitability under 20% of sales. Employee turnover in the lower profit group was approximately twice as high as turnover in the high profit group. The profit level in the high profit group was 30.3% of sales, and the profit level in the lower profit group was 11.4% of sales. Although turnover might not be the only cause of these profit levels, these findings indicate that employee turnover is an important factor in bottom-line performance. Unfortunately, organizations can find it difficult to reduce employee separations when turnover is part of the system. The manager's notebook, job hopping, voluntary turnover is part. Employee separation: the termination of an employee's membership in an organization. Turnover rate: the rate of employee separations in an organization. Chapter 6: Managing Employee Separations, Downsizing, and Outplacement. 201 of the business environment in India and China describes how management of turnover can be difficult when it is part of the business reality. It is common to estimate the cost of turnover from a conservative 25% 10 to 300% of the lost employee's annual compensation. 11. Looking at the most conservative end of that range, at an average salary of $30,000, the cost of a turnover would be $6,000. For a company with 1,000 employees and a 20% turnover rate, the annual cost of turnover would be at least $1,200,000, not a trivial cost, and it could be much higher depending on the situation. Figure 6.2 presents only some of the costs associated with replacing an employee. The costs can be categorized as recruitment costs, selection costs, training costs, and separation costs. Recruitment costs. The costs associated with recruiting a replacement may include advertising the job vacancy and using a professional recruiter to travel to various locations, including college campuses. To fill executive positions or technologically complex openings, it may be necessary to employ a search firm to locate qualified individuals, who most likely are already employed. A search firm typically charges the company a fee of about 30% of the employee's annual salary. Exhibit 6.1. A quick look at the numbers. A turnover rate. Primer turnover happens in all organizations. The rate of turnover can vary over time and across companies and industries. Before determining whether your turnover rate is high compared to other time periods or to other organizations, be sure you calculate it accurately. You need the number of employees exiting each month and the average number of employees on staff during each of those months. The following formula calculates this rate. Turnover equals number of employees leaving the job times 12 average number of employees number of months in during the period. Let's consider the following situation. Over the course of 6 months, you have had 12 employees leave a department. The average number of employees in the department is 50. Given these numbers, your annualized turnover rate is 12/50 times 12/6 equals 0.48. Over the 6 months your turnover rate has been 24%. However, the formula indicates that this rate is 48% on an annual basis. Knowing the overall turnover rate can provide a rough comparison point. However, breaking the overall rate down into various components can help you to understand the sources for turnover and help to determine whether you have a problem. A helpful way of breaking out the overall rate is to use the categories in Figure 6.1. Source of turnover refers to whether the employee decided to leave the organization, voluntary, or management made the decision to end the employment relationship, involuntary. Selection costs. Selection costs are associated with selecting, hiring, and placing a new employee in a job. Interviewing the job applicant includes the costs associated with travel to the interview site and the productivity lost in organizing the interviews and arranging meetings to make selection decisions. For example, a law firm's decision to hire a new associate